What's up, everybody? I am Jesse, or GameOverJesse, and we are doing our topic of discussion for the Hylians Gamescast. Next up will be the Zelda Mailbag, where we answer all of your Zelda questions. So put those in the comments below if you want them answered on the Zelda Mailbag as soon as we're done with this. We have Ilya Rose going first, and then Rick and Kayla may go second or third, depending on how they're feeling. I'll go fourth. We will all four go last and decide together on what should be the fifth one. But we were talking about the top 5 Zelda games that need a direct sequel. These are games like Wind Waker had a direct sequel, Phantom Hourglass, Ocarina of Time had Majora's Mask, Link to the Past had, depending on which timeline you look at, Link's Awakening or the Oracle games. Link Between Worlds had Triforce Heroes. And there are, you could call, like Twilight Princess is technically a sequel to Majora's Mask, but it doesn't take place directly after. So we're talking about a game that has the same Link picking up within a month after the other game, or within that same Link's lifetime, at least. So he could be a child in one game and be an adult in another. He could be an adult in one game and be an old man in the next, as long as it's following the story of the exact same Link. Put your answers in the comments below and we'll go through and check them out. May give you a shout out as well. So let us know which games you deserve or you think deserve a direct sequel. And starting with you, Ilya, what is our first Zelda game that deserves a sequel? And these can include games that have had other sequels, to mention that. So you can pick Majora's Mask to have a sequel, which is already a sequel, if you would like. So,
yeah.
Which game?
I had originally thought about Breath of the Wild, and then I realized I wouldn't want a direct sequel, I'd want a direct prequel. So
Yeah.
I was like, well, truth be told, actually, I remember thinking about this when you sent us the Google Doc. I was like, oh gosh. And the conclusion I came to was really wanting one to Twilight Princess. I don't know, something involving
You took my answer.
Medna?
Sucker.
Well, I want maybe something involving Medna or the Twilight Realm, because we only saw it like in a deadened state. You know, kind of like this, almost the same reason that I want Breath of the Wild to have a prequel is because of how we saw the Twilight Realm, or even since it is in the timeline of Majora's Mask, I'd like to see if maybe there could be something done with Termina. I don't know. Termina, however people prefer to pronounce it. I say Termina, that's just what I'm used to. Yeah, I don't have a lot of direction for how I'd want it to go, but I just...
To interrupt you?
Oh, yes.
It is Termina, because there's a debate on whether it's a play on the word terminal or terminal. Wait. Terminate? Yeah. Terminate or terminal. So either way,
and I always thought it was
it's
terminal.
Termina. So,
and as a child, I always said terminal, but then again, I pronounced everything weird anyway, so I wasn't sure. And I think I've wanted a Twilight Princess sequel since I saw one of my brothers playing it years back, like, because I was like the 12-year-old that had a crush on Twilight Princess Link. But I don't know, I feel like that there could be a story there, especially because we don't know what happened in Midnight. Maybe they just want to leave that as is. If I could choose one, I would say Twilight. With like the same Link at the same age, possibly.
yeah. Well, we know in Breath of the Wild, like, it shows the what is it? The mirror, the Twilight mirror? Yeah.
Yeah, mirror
So
Twilight.
someone gathered it and like took it across like the entire to like a completely different side of Hyrule, because it would have been from Breath of the Wild's map the southwest, and then now it's in the southeast. So someone collected all the pieces and moved it a really
Just a
long
lot
way.
of pieces.
Yeah.
It could also be the Dark Mirror, though, too. So
That's true.
Yeah. So then, did you finish with yours, or did you have anything else to add?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I didn't think of it too much in depth,
Right.
but I just felt that there was a story there in Twilight Princess.
So, what does everybody else think about Twilight Princess 2? because personally, that was going to be the one that I picked, so I guess I'm glad you went first, so I can think of another one. But I always liked the idea, and this could also work with Breath of the Wild Link, to where Ocarina of Time ends, Navi disappears, Link goes on an adventure to try to find Navi, and he ends up in Termina, Majora's Mask happens. So in Twilight Princess, Midna goes missing, perhaps Link goes on a quest to figure out how to bring Midna back, or at least be able to communicate with her, because he knows he's been to the Twilight Realm. Hyrule has been turned into the Twilight Realm, sort of. So there's got to be other ways to do that. There's also like the Sacred Realm. There's like dozens of different realms or realities within the world of Zelda. So who knows what sort of nonsense he could try to go on to find it, but then he ends up accidentally getting lost in Termina, the same as his great whatever grandfather did, and that's the story that I would like. And then you could see, like, if you look at Ocarina of Time and then you look at Twilight Princess, you get to see how much bigger Hyrule is. Like, from the scale of the Nintendo 64 version to the GameCube version, Hyrule is like 10 times bigger. So I always thought, imagine what Termina would look like at that scope. If you took Termina from Majora's Mask and made it on the scale of Hyrule from Twilight Princess. But you still had like Clocktown in the very center, and then you would go there, and in the same way that Wind Waker had stories of the ancient hero from Ocarina of Time, like they would all be like telling you about, you know, this past hero who saved the world. Perhaps the same type of stories would now be told in Termina, because in Termina there were no real stories like that. But now, like, you could go there and people would be like, you look similar to the Boy of Legend, or like, my great grandfather told me a story about someone like you. And then it's Twilight Princess Link hearing stories about his great grandfather. So I thought that would be really cool. So that's what I would like the story to be about. But what about everybody else? How could you see Twilight Princess 2 going?
I don't really... Oh, sorry. Do you want to go first, Rick?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I don't really have any specific, like, how I would really want to see the game go, but I know that Twilight Princess, for sure, I'd really want to see a sequel to, just because it's one of the only Zelda games that I felt kind of sad at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think, like, that's the main reason why I'd want to see that, because, I don't know,
Which game again?
Twilight Princess.
Okay.
We're talking about Twilight Princess.
Okay. Yeah, that makes... At first I was like, but you kill Ganon at the end. And then I remembered Midna leaves, so yeah, it is a sad ending, sorry.
Shattering the mirror and...
So sad.
So sad. Okay, Rick, you go ahead.
I'm basically in the same boat with Jesse. I'd really like to see just a continuation of Link's next adventure, maybe going through Termina or something, backtracking his great grandfather's footsteps and everything would be really interesting to see.
Yeah, and then you get to explore Termina as an adult instead of just a child.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, Rick, we can go with you. I feel like I accidentally called you Daniel a second ago. So if I did, I apologize.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I didn't hear it.
Yeah. Anyways,
mine's gonna be pretty obvious.
Oh, really quick! Someone mentioned in the chat about this. Since we're talking about Twilight Princess, I want to bring it in because I asked people to give their opinions. It says you were talking about this before, Jesse, how Cafe Anjou's descendants would be like, you look like the guy who saved my great-grandparents' wedding. So yeah, Daniel and I talked about that in a video a while back, to where you get to see, like, in Majora's Mask, you get to see them getting married, but then maybe you get to see their grandkids in the Twilight Princess sequel. So, like, you see... Or, like, maybe their grandkid is, like, the bad guy, and then plot twist, you shouldn't have saved the wedding, because now he's trying to take over Termina. Like, this purple-haired kid's trying to be evil. Anyways, continue, Rick. Sorry.
I'm a huge Hero of Time fan. and everything. So I'd have to say Majora's Mask. I'd really like to see a continuation of that. Nintendo would never do this, but I really wish they would take a darker spin on it and kind of show why the hero of time became the cursed swordsman in Twilight Princess. That would be awesome.
Cool.
Just to see his one last hurrah before he dies, and it would be a nice twist to actually see the hero that you've been playing as, fall to a tragic fate.
Did you watch the Zelda theory that was written by a Larulian historian that Ilya voiced?
I
About
think so.
The third hero of time quest or adventure.
Mm-hmm.
It was a really cool, and it's done really good for the channel as well. But it talks about that because on Ganondorf's armor in Twilight Princess there is, there's a whatever you want to call it, like art or like a sculpting of Ganondorf or like some sort of beast fighting against Link. But
I had never noticed that until that video too, by the way.
So
Same. I was voicing it and I was like, what? What?
So the crazy thing is, in that timeline, the hero of time, which would have been that Link, because like the cutscene happens before Twilight Princess, like shortly after Ocarina of Time. So it has to be that Link. So it's like it's talking about some crazy event that happened that no other game talks about. Twilight Princess doesn't even give backstory on it, and it's like a missing story. But then there's like artwork and hints throughout Twilight Princess that sort of like tells this unheard third Ocarina of Time, Hero of Time story, which everyone can go watch the video. Larulian did a really great job writing the script, and Ilya did a great job reading the script, and I feel like I did a good job editing the video. Daniel even recorded some of the video footage, so it's like a huge team effort. Plus it costed a lot of money because I had to pay everyone who worked on it, so I need to make back the money. Jesse talks too much. It's my podcast, Star. I'm supposed to talk.
Yeah, Jesse's the star of the show.
Yeah, seriously.
We're just here for him to bounce his ideas
says,
off.
I can grow more facial hair than him. Jesse still
You can grow more facial hair than me.
What? No, he says you can grow more facial hair than him.
And then he says, well, Jesse sells shirts, so his face. I mean, there's been enough people to tell me how amazingly beautiful I am, so I might.
Oh, wow.
Yes. If it pleases you, there will be no, there's not going to be a picture of my shirt, no. Okay.
In case any of you guys ever followed the Vlog Brothers, I know that for Christmas they do Pizza John or John, or I don't remember, but John Green, just like at one point they sell a bunch of merch and it's literally just his face on everything with a really nasty mustache.
Wow.
It's amazing.
Amanda in the chat says I'm fun to listen to, so thank you. Then he asks, where's Daniel? Daniel is with his family. Something came up, and yeah.
He's having a family day.
Yeah.
So I'm replacing him. I know I'm no adequate replacement.
I guess technically Rick is Daniel's replacement. Last week, Ilya replaced Kayla. Yeah. Last week was kind of cool because it was Ilya's first time, so then, like...
I was in a hotel room.
Yeah, she's been on a bunch of videos, but she hadn't been on the podcast. And you had asked about the podcast, and I had asked you to be on the podcast, but it never happened before time
I was always doing stuff with theater or whatnot, and I'd always be like, I'm sorry, I'm going to be up till like 2 a.m. rehearsing lines.
Yeah. All right, Kayla. No, wait. We were on Rick's, right?
Rick. I don't know if he finished. I don't know if you interrupted him or not.
All right.
I'm done. I'm
I
done.
totally agree. I want to know how Hero Shade became Hero Shade.
So Rick
How did he lose
finished,
his eye? What's the thing in his
and
head?
then that's why I started talking about the theory, because it was relevant. Okay, so there. I wasn't interrupting to like plug a video that Ilya and everyone worked on. It was actually relevant to the conversation. So, what is everyone's thoughts on Majora's Mask See, everyone, whenever they talk about a Third Hero of Time game, they reference, I want Majora's Mask 2. I don't think it would have any mention of Majora's Mask in it in the same way Majora's Mask.
I just meant after Majora's Mask is what I meant.
But I'm saying, like, this is what, when people type in the comments, like, I would love a sequel to Majora's Mask, which makes sense, or Majora's Mask 2, which doesn't make sense. And there is a rumor that I want to put to rest of Majora's Mask 2, I forgot what it was. It was like the Origins of Fierce Deity or something for the GameCube. There's a lot of people who believe it's real. It was misinformation spread based off of artwork of a game case someone made. So you can type it in. Majora's
Mask. So it was just
Mask.
like misinformation off of a fan art project.
Yeah,
It's fan art.
It was similar to how everyone thought there was going to be like a Wind Waker prequel for Zelda Wii, Valley of the Flood or something like that.
Huh. I don't know. You just never see Nintendo go back and make these games about heroes that they've made legends on that don't have a game already.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of their place. They're a legend.
Yeah. But yeah, like Majora's Mask 2, I would love to see it. I don't really know or have an idea what it would be based on. Like Link going back to Hyrule, what does Hyrule look like after the 7 years? So like he ages into an adult naturally. What does that version of Hyrule look like in the child timeline? And then he could even go to like a third world. Like he starts in Hyrule, goes to Termina, then maybe somewhere else. So, what about you, Kayla?
About Majora's Mask?
Yeah. So, here's the thing. I'm going to make a quick call, but you guys talk about this, and then when it's done, Kayla, you can go into the Zelda game that you would like to see if I'm not back. But this should just take like 2 minutes. I don't even want to make the call. All right.
Oh, I'm sorry. Cat.
Yeah, she keeps trying to get into my room. I was like, fine. This is Navi.
Aww. Majora's Mask. Yeah, I'd like to see a sequel to that. Like Jesse was saying, like I don't really know where they would go with it, but I feel like what you're mentioning with kind of figuring out more about Link and what happens after would be really interesting to see.
Mm-hmm. Maybe them going after Ganondorf or something like that.
Yeah. Did you have any thoughts on it, Ilya?
I mean, I wonder, they wouldn't do this because they're pretty good about, like, not letting the fans kind of let their minds run wild with this, but I'm like, do he get with Milan?
That's like your only concern. It's like, who is Link's pairing?
You agree, Navi? She's at the point where she's like, okay, I'm done being pet. I want to be put down.
I can tell.
Growls.
She's like, she has her paws out. She's like, human release.
Well, she's not allowed in my room because. Oh, okay. Chill, child. She's not allowed in my room because she'll rip up my comforter. But she was pawing underneath the door like, pet me. But yeah, I would love to know anything about that. The closest they've ever gotten with that type of stuff is Skyward Sword, which is literally, I think, maybe one of 2 games that I would actually ship with Link and Zelda. Other than that.
Oh, a Link and Zelda ship. Last time I said that, Jesse and Daniel laughed at me because I was shipping them in Ocarina of Time, and he was like, Kayla, you're disgusting. What is wrong with you?
Well, Daniel would have hated me because until maybe like 2 months ago, I was a huge Ocarina of Time, Link and Zelda are siblings person.
Mm-hmm.
Until I asked a question for the podcast, actually. Because I was like, okay, why doesn't he like it? I need to know. Also, the whole Link thing was actually my first question that was ever answered, and it was the title of the video. Started there. But I remember I was like, I need to know, why does Daniel hate this theory so much? Because I think it's a really cool theory. And then I was like, oh, that makes sense.
Wait, what was the theory?
Dang it! That Ocarina of Time, Link and Zelda might be separated twins. birth because we don't know either of their mothers. And that was literally all I was going off of.
That was a theory? It's a disgusting theory.
Yeah, like when Daniel said some things that I was like, that makes sense. Yep, nope, yep. And actually one of my first videos is gonna be about how stupid that theory is. Because I was like...
So, there's an interview that I read a few months ago about... it was with Aonuma... No, sorry. It was with Miyamoto. Shortly before Ocarina of Time released. And he said that in his mind, the way, I guess the original story for the game, but the relationship between Navi, Link, and Zelda was that Link was mutual. So he looked at, because he was raised by a tree in the woods, so he doesn't process relationships like that. He just knows, oh, we're friends. That's it.
That's why he's mute.
Yeah. So
raised by a tree.
But Navi had a huge crush on Link. Zelda, and this was Miyamoto's intentions. It doesn't come across in the game because they changed some stuff, but this is his intentions. Navi has a huge crush on Link. Zelda has a huge crush on Link. Because of that, Zelda and Navi don't get along.
Mm-hmm.
So there's supposed to be like a friendly rivalry between the two because they're jealous of each other.
Triangle.
Navi is
that Link is unaware of.
Essentially, Navi is jealous, and this is from Miyamoto. I'll link the interview in the description when the video goes up.
I think I voiced some of this for one video.
Yeah, in the top 5 mysteries of Ocarina of Time, it referenced this.
Why Navi went away, that thing. That's
so when it's talking about, like, one of the mysteries is what happens to Navi. And then, like, one of the answers that I wrote was based off of this, was that Navi left because she realized she would never be able to be with Link, because she's, like, a fairy. She's, like, an inch tall. So, like, there's no real way that they could be in a relationship. And this was just, like, one of the 5 reasons that I listed as to what happened to Navi. But anyways, Zelda's jealous of Navi because Navi's always able to hang out with Link.
Yeah.
Where she's stuck in the castle and then she has to leave for the 7 years, so she spends all that time away from the person that she has a crush on, or like the only boy that she's liked. Because I guess the only other boy is the one that just like walks around the graveyard, like beating things with sticks.
There's many children.
Yeah, so he's like the only other boy that I can think of.
He's too young.
So, Zelda's jealous of Navi because Navi's always able to hang out with Link, and she spent all the time with Link. But Navi is jealous of Zelda because Zelda is an actual human girl, which means they could have a real relationship where Navi can't. So they're both jealous of each other, and they're supposed to, in the game, like, whenever they talk to each other, they're supposed to like make rude comments to each other, but all of that was taken out of the game. I imagine this was all part of all of the stuff that was taken out when it was changed from the Nintendo 64 disk drive version to the standard Nintendo 64 version, where it was supposed to have like extra dungeons, items, villages, stuff like that. Rick knows what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I imagine it was just stuff that was taken out to make the game. They're like, is it necessary to the game? No, so let's just take it out.
I bet they felt it was too similar to how Peter Pan and Wendy and Tinkerbell all interact and everything too. Because I mean, they drew inspiration from Link and all that stuff as well.
So that is one thing that separates me from a lot of the rude Zelda fans, where like if they like a theory, they will, or if they like something about the Zelda series, even if it's a theory that's easily proven wrong, they will defend it, even like get things heated, like calling you names and being super rude, because they like it so much they don't want to admit that it's not true. With me, I know that the whole Link kind of being inspired by Peter Pan thing, especially with Ocarina of Time, is true.
Yeah.
I dislike it, but I know it's true. But there are some people, for example, who dislike it, so they would be like, no, that's misinformation, that's not true, that's false. He didn't really say that, when he did. Like So, if you find Zelda fans out there that are like debating when something's obviously wrong, there's no sense in carrying on the debate. But yeah.
All right. I guess I will mention the game that I want a sequel for, question mark.
Yes.
Yeah.
See, this is hard because Twilight Princess was mine, and then Majora's Mask was my
I have a
backup.
feeling
Well, this
that
is
was going
why
to be like everyone's pick.
this is
so.
why I'm going last, because I didn't want to pick
I hope
someone
that yours is a
else's,
good
and
one.
then so I didn't want to pick someone else's, and then I also wanted time to change mine if someone picked mine first.
I guess, unfortunately, not unfortunately, I have been, if anyone has, I don't know, I've been on a really big, like, Breath of the Wild kick lately, so honestly, I would love to see a sequel to Breath of the Wild and just kind of see, like, really what happens to Hyrule after we finally get rid of Ganon, because you never really see that, like, the after in games. Oh. Sorry. Cameron just whispered spoilers to me, so anyone that hasn't beaten Breath of the Wild, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Spoilers.
Have you played any Zelda games?
Any game that has a bad guy, any Zelda game that has a bad guy in it, ends with the bad guy being defeated. So, spoilers.
Except in the Downfall timeline, that one.
But yeah, I'm defaulting to Breath of the Wild.
Okay. Story, plot.
I have no idea. All of my words were for Twilight Princess because that was the one that I wanted to see the
It's the
most.
same.
So it's like,
It's the same as the sequel that everybody wants for Skyward Sword, where
However,
they want to see
the way-
Hyrule be rebuilt, kind of.
one
No,
thing
they wanna
about like sequels, really, like I personally, as much as I think like sequels to like Twilight Princess or Majora's Mask could be cool, at the same time, I kind of like having that just kind of like empty space where you can just kind of imagine what happens instead of something happening and it being canon, and
Yeah.
you just have to live with it. So, man,
Midna is no more.
Yeah. With Breath of the Wild, in terms of a sequel, everyone wants to see what happens like immediately after. I was hoping that would have been DLC, and if they did make a sequel,
Yeah.
the sequel would be about either another land that has a lot of trouble going on, and they see like, oh, like this kid in Hyrule saved everyone from calamity again, and maybe he can help with us. So something like that, or
so something that maybe ties in like a different kind of bad guy.
yeah, like
Yeah.
because they're like around Termina, there's like Cohelant Island, Termina, I can't think of the others, Labrina, Holodrum, all of these other areas. So, like, you know, bring up another land that's next to Hyrule, and they're like, oh, well, maybe he can help us solve our problem and beat our bad guy, whoever that bad guy is. Like in New Hyrule, we don't know what, like, we haven't visited New Hyrule outside of the adult timeline. So we don't know what that land was called before, I don't think. So it's like, we see it in the adult timeline when it's not, when it's not that land anymore. They end up calling it New Hyrule. So whatever the land was previously, see what it looks like in a new timeline. Like Twilight Princess and Wind Waker kind of happen around the same time. So Hyrule it's the same Hyrule, but in one it's completely different than the other. So maybe New Hyrule, you can see it in the different timeline. Maybe it's completely different as well. But I would also like to see like 20 years after, and then like adult Link is now like 40 or almost 40. Zelda's almost, technically I guess they're both almost 140. Yeah, but it's about their kid. Like, they have a young kid, and you play as Link's son.
I don't know how I feel about that. That's like at the end of Harry Potter, and then they bring out like old Daniel Radcliffe
Well,
and
it's like
children, and it's like
Ocarina.
It's so unnecessary.
Well, it's like the hero of a time to Twilight Princess Link.
Yeah.
Except instead of like his great whatever grandson, it's just his son. So, and then 20 years would be enough time for them to rebuild everything. Honestly, there's so many magic users there that I'm sure someone would be able to do it, or like they could just go to the Triforce and be like, hey, restore Hyrule, and then the next day it's finished. So, yeah. But does anyone else have any suggestions for Breath of the Wild 2?
I think, and this is half silly, want to know why that Goron was allowed into Gerudo Town.
Nice.
Give us a side
Thinking
quest,
about
dang
it,
it.
like
What?
seeing a female Goron would kind of be odd, because like,
I've never seen one.
yeah, like their chest, like it would just be weird seeing, because all the Gorons are naked. So seeing one with the chest is
Female
like,
Goron,
that's an-
titties hanging out. Sorry.
yeah, that's like an instant mature rating for.
I know, I mean, you've seen the Gorons in Twilight Princess. Imagine if
They could put like rocks around it, you know, to kind of
Yeah.
hide
Like
it
a
if they
rock
really
bikini.
something.
I mean, I will say, like, the Twilight Princess ones, they do wear, like, those tiny little underwear things. I'm not sure what
Yeah.
they are.
Oh, the loincloth.
Yeah, I couldn't think of the name. Couldn't think of the name.
But yeah, you know what? You have a good point about Twilight Princess Gorons. You can't put an M rating. We've already seen the saggiest Goron boobs known to man, so...
Yes! There's a 64 things wrong with on
Gorgon.
Twilight Princess. I can't remember the dude's name. Oh, I'm so sorry. I watch this stuff all the time. And his entire series of Twilight Princess 64 things wrong with Twilight Princess, joking of course, is Goron titty. My friend who loves Twilight Princess without end, I showed it to her. She was in tears, crying.
Oh, man.
Much.
It's funny because I said that, and then I looked over, and my boyfriend was Googling an image to see what it looked like. And, oh, man.
It's so. Also, I love the Gorons in Breath of the Wild. Whenever they have big facial expressions, their eyes get like all blue, and then
Yeah, yeah.
I love them. I don't know. That's my. I was being kind of silly. I didn't have many from Breath of the Wild too.
All right, Rick, what is your Breath of the Wild sequel?
You guys have basically already covered it. I'd really like to see like Hyrule rebuilt. I mean, basically what everybody else is,
Yeah.
wanting
So in
out
that
of
sense,
it.
like a prequel or the sequel with it built.
Yeah, the sequel with the built, but with the different enemy. I'm tired of Ganon and Ganondorf. If they brought Ganondorf actually back as his human form, it would be sick. But the Ganon's just so overused. I get it. I mean, it's a series, but
I have a really weird idea. This wouldn't be a sequel. It would be like I guess it would be a prequel. What if during his 100-year slumber he went to Koholint? Or Koholint? Created by the Windfish? I don't know why. I just thought that was like, what if he spent 100 years fighting?
Hanging out with the Windfish.
Yeah, well, that's like Twilight Princess. He spends hundreds of years or however long in the Twilight Realm. So, yeah.
It would just.
And then the Dark World, where he usually gets imprisoned at, is just a corrupted version of the Sacred Realm, which is where the Chamber of Sages and all of the sages hang out. So, yeah.
All right. I want to know Jesse's game that he wants a sequel for.
Now that we've stolen
I would
all of the
get
good
Wind
ones.
Waker 3, or technically Wind Waker 2. It would be, I guess now, unless they retconned it, it would have to be a direct sequel for Phantom Hourglass. But they were working on, we have a video covering this as well. I think this was the first video that Ilya, me, Tony from Hard for Games, and Connor worked on. This was Daniel and I had a contest for the fans of the Discord or fans of the YouTube channel that were in the Discord. We had a contest where people could submit their voices for a potential voiceover. There were 2 winners. It was Ilya and Connor, and they were chosen to be on this video, which is done fairly well. It has, I think, around 40 or 50, maybe 60,000 views. I don't know. It doesn't have too many, but it's enough to be successful. And in it, we talk about a bunch of the canceled stuff from Wind Waker, and we briefly mention the original Wind Waker sequel, which was in development, and then they canceled it to work on Twilight Princess, where they technically just converted everything over to a more realistic art style and then reused it in Twilight Princess. But it was supposed to have a young Link aging into adult Link. So, and it would have taken place off of the water. It would have been a more Twilight Princess-esque version of Hyrule, like about the same size as Twilight Princess's Hyrule, but there would have been a lot of water areas as well. I guess kind of like Breath of the Wild, where there's several large bodies of water. So it would have been something like that, and then there was the only ever appearance of Toon Epona would have been there, which would have been really cool, because we've seen realistic Epona Twilight Princess, we've seen anime Epona in Breath of the Wild, we've seen 2D Epona in Minish Cap, and we've seen like manga Epona because it looks like a manga, an Ocarina of Time Majora's Mask. But there would have been like Toon Epona, and her features like Link's and all the other characters would have been a bit exaggerated. Like Link had a huge head, so it would have been interesting to see how Toon Epona looked, like cel shaded and everything. And then like the adventures of Wind Waker Link as an adult would have been really, really cool, and seeing him age naturally, similar to and I may be getting this confused with like the original concept for the first Wind Waker, but like Toon Epona and everything was from Wind Waker 2, but the aging thing, I don't know if that was for the sequel or the original, but it would have been cool to see, instead of like an Ocarina of Time, Link just jumping to being an adult, to seeing him age naturally. Like maybe you complete one part of the story and then like it skips forward a year or two and then it keeps skipping forward. That would have been a really cool aspect, especially if like it had some way to like you go to your bed and you would fall asleep and then you could go back and replay some of the areas, because in Ocarina of Time we've seen what Hyrule looks like in the past, and then it looks completely different 7 years later. Like Lake Hylia is completely dried up. Zora's Domain, the source of all the water in Hyrule, is frozen. All the Gorons are imprisoned from Death Mountain. The volcano is actually active. Hyrule Castle's completely destroyed. So there's all of this stuff. Like Hyrule's completely changed. Everything about Hyrule is like literally the opposite. So in Wind Waker, it would have been cool to see like the progression of some of these changes. So yeah, that's basically what I would want, and the story that I would want with it. And it's based off of a potential game that would have happened if people in America, Canada, Mexico, Ireland, England, all of the UK wouldn't have told Nintendo that they didn't like the Toon Link art style. So, because that's what they were making, and everyone complained saying, hey, we hate this cel-shaded Zelda game. We don't like it. So Nintendo of Japan was like, okay, well, we will make the exact opposite. And then we got Twilight Princess. So, yeah. But what do you guys think about that? Like, Wind Waker 2. Which, Phantom Hourglass, but I guess this would have been Phantom Hourglass 2.
So like in between Wind Waker and Phantom Hourglass.
No. It would have been because Phantom Hourglass is almost immediately after. It would be between Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks, which would have also been.
He's a child in Phantom.
Yeah. So it would have also been interesting because by this you're going from the first game on a home console, the second game on a handheld, and then the third game was on a handheld as well, but then the prequel to it would be on a home console. So it's like it swaps between all of them, which would be interesting.
I would love to see a Toon cel-shaded Epona, personally.
Yes.
Would have loved to see that.
Another thing. Twilight Princess introduced like the cats that you could pick up.
Yeah.
And then Ocarina of Time already had like the dogs that you could go and find. So to see like Toon dogs and cats and everything, which we got like Toon pigs and stuff in Wind Waker, but to like see like the Toon versions of all of the different animals with their exaggerated features, trying to make them look even cuter, that would have been cool as well.
Yeah, you couldn't pet dogs in Breath of the Wild.
I know.
I'm just like, when I first played it, I was just like,
yeah.
They went back in time with that.
Twilight Princess, you could literally pick up the animals, but
now all I can do is feed them.
Yeah. Could you do anything in Skyward Sword? Like you could pick up the little demon cat Jinx.
Could kill them at night or knock them off the edge or no, I don't know what.
No,
you can do
you could pick them up because you could like throw them.
Yeah, when he's.
Oh yeah.
I'd throw him off, or try to throw him off the edge, but I think he would fly back up. I don't know. Anyways, Illy, what were you saying? Aside from Toon Epona?
Toon? Well, this may have been in other games.
You could also, since Link is aging, all of the other NPCs would age as well, which means Toon Epona would age as well. So you'd see like young Toon Epona and then adult Toon Epona. I think adult Tetra could be cute.
She could be freaking badass. She already is.
Yeah. Oh, and there's concept art. I forget which book, but Nintendo released concept art of adult Toon Link as well. That they drew.
I think it's in Hyrule Historia.
Oh.
It's either that or it's an artifact.
I was gonna say, like, wow.
I was about to go get mine too, which is
doing
both
his
up
research.
No, while he's looking at that,
I have Encyclopedia pre-ordered.
I want to say this is the best design for a 3DS. I wanted it for so long, but it was like $300-$400.
I really liked the Animal Crossing one.
Yeah.
That one was cute.
So, a potential news story that I left off because we already had too much news. There's another Zelda book called How to Be a Champion, which is a Breath of the Wild concept art book.
I want it.
And in like the cover of it has all of the champions like in a fighting pose, not the one that we're used to seeing. They're like lined up kind of like the Avengers. But the book is, I thought it was really cool. It's called How to Be a Champion, or How to Be Champions, or something like that, which is really cool because Breath of the Wild is Link learning how to be a champion. So, from the previous champions or whatever. So,
they don't have that specific piece of concept art that you were talking about, but I mean, they have it at like a rough idea. Well, my freaking camera.
It's too bright.
Yeah, it's way too bright. This might help.
There we
But
go.
Link is an adult right there.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They have one. I can't remember if it's in the book or not. But it like shows him growing up and everything.
Nice. All right. So, number 5 was, what was yours, Celia?
Mine was Twilight Princess.
All right. And then number 4, Rick.
Mine was basically Ocarina of Time 3.
Number
Fast 2.
3, Kayla.
Breath of the Wild.
And number 2 was Wind Waker. So we'll have to decide on the last game to get a sequel. Does anyone want to start? Like what other games they can decide? We've all picked 3D games, so let's go with the 2D game, just to make it fair.
Link's Awakening. I don't know. I just threw that one out
Link's
there.
Awakening?
That's like the 2D one I know. 2D one I know. No, I have Zelda 1 and A Link to the Past. But yeah, I'm just throwing that out there. I don't have any specific ones that I'd be like, oh my gosh, totally this.
All right. What about you, Rick?
There's not a lot of good ones to pick from anymore. I guess Zelda 2, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I would say Minish Cap, but Minish Cap technically is followed up by Four Swords,
like
Four Swords Adventures.
Yeah.
If you look at either of the timelines.
Someone said Zelda Crow sequel. I don't know what that is.
CDI. They corrected themselves.
Okay,
CDI. Or someone else corrected them.
I think there's already a Zelda CDI. There's 3 games, so there's 2 sequels there. So,
one with Gamelon, all that.
Yeah.
Ew.
So you have your dream sequels there, buddy. I would say Zelda 2 as well.
I was actually going to say Zelda 2 as well.
I'll join the bandwagon on that.
Because Link's Awakening would be cool, but like, you're giving way too much.
Kind of already has.
Well, you're giving way too much to like that version of Link, because he goes from A Link to the Past, both of the Oracle games, and then Link's Awakening. That's already more than any others. And then he makes, debatably, an appearance in A Link Between Worlds, because there's the old man who wears the green tunic, and there's a character in it that mentions that he used to go on adventure, or like there's legends of him going on adventures or something, and then you fight different versions of Dark Link, and then once you beat all of the different versions of Dark Link, you fight against the old man, and the old man has all of the same items as you, which are also mostly items that were in A Link to the Past. So it's heavily believed that the old man is Link from A Link to the Past. So there's like a bunch of games that Link's already in, and I don't want to give him like way too many games. So yeah. And then like, I guess the other Link would be Ocarina of Time Link, because he's in Majora's Mask, a skeleton in Twilight Princess, he's a statue in The Wind Waker, which is also really cool. We get to see potentially what adult Toon Link would look like in Wind Waker, because there's a statue but it's not colored. So yeah. But yeah, I would go Zelda 2.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Because those were like the very first Zelda games, but they take place at the very end of the timeline.
Yeah.
I guess Breath of the Wild technically is at the end, but still, like, those would be really interesting to follow up, especially if they just called it Zelda 3, which A Link to the Past was originally called Zelda 3, and then it was completely different. Rick, Holly, and I have a video about canceled Zelda games, top 5 canceled Zelda games. Thank you guys for watching it. It has a little bit over like 500,000 views, but in it there's a huge interview with Miyamoto and the director or the creator of the Dragon Quest series, I think, and they're both talking about their games. Miyamoto's talking about Zelda 3, which ended up becoming A Link to the Past, and the game that he describes is very different. Like, he says it has like 3-player multiplayer, where like one can play as an elf boy, which Link, one can play as a fairy, which would be a character that could do like reconnaissance, and like scout out the area, and then I forgot what the other one was. And the fairy design was later used for some other game. I forgot what it was, but he said that he had, when he made Zelda 1, he had the idea and concepts of like 3 different Zelda games, and then even when he was making Zelda 2, there were stuff that he was like, no, that would be good for the next Zelda game. So he would save it, but then he ended up making Zelda 3, and then they delayed it, changed a bunch of stuff, and we got A Link to the Past, which was a single-player game, not a multiplayer game, which A Link to the Past, but 3 players would have been really, really cool. So, yeah, it's interesting. Because that's another game that actually could have happened, but didn't. But yeah, where it takes place at the very end of the timeline, but it was one of the first games made, it would be cool to see what happens afterwards. So, that is the end of our topic of discussion. So, thanks everyone for watching. Go check out our shirts or whatever. It helps get Daniel, Kayla, and I money for the podcast. And I guess we can start the Zelda mailbag. Do you guys still have time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got to go eat, to be honest
Alright.
with you. I'm starving. I got off work and came right here, so
Yeah.
I'm done for the night, guys.
Food
Alright.
is important.
That's okay. Thank you for joining us,
Yeah.
Rick.
All right, see you later.
Bye.
Alright, see ya. Alright, now we'll do one question each. I guess that works.
Yeah.
We'll do a shorter mailbag. Alright.
I feel like we've had a surprising amount to talk about just because, like,
Yeah, we
did
had
a
lot
little
of
bit more
news
for priority
stories.
news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright.
Yeah.
Everyone that's watching, put your questions in, and then I'll take the last question. So, if there's already a question in the chat, then you guys can take it, or there's the list on the document that you guys can go through and choose from. You can find your questions while I do the intro, and then I guess we'll start with you, Kayla.
Okay.
All right.